something very few are prepared for emotionally or financially. And while we hope eventually to see more kinship supports available to families who are not involved in the child welfare system, we know that these new programs offer much needed resources for many of our families. But rather than talk to you about the various K programs and in honor of Kinship Care Month, we asked today's keynote speaker, Onita Morgan-Edwards, to share her journey. Onita is a full-time parenting grandparent as of January 2024, so brand new, a widow, and a mother of 3 grown children. A resident from Dayton, she has spent much of her career working with youth and young adults, and today she is a published author and poet, a small business owner, and an amateur photographer. She is working on a book of poetry, wrapping up her first novel, and enjoys digging up family memories for a memoir. Onita completed her undergraduate studies at Antioch University and holds an MFA in creative writing from Ashland University. She enjoys bonding with her granddaughter over art, and as Onita shares in her poetry and her story today, you'll see her granddaughter's art projected up on the screen. We discovered Onita when we requested PCSAs to help us recruit families who are willing to illustrate what healing and relationship means to them. Thanks to Montgomery County, wherever you are out here, we connected with Onita and are thrilled to share that her poem and her granddaughter's art have been accepted and will be published later this year in the winter edition of the Family Justice Journal. Please join me in welcoming Onita Morgan-Edwards.
Good afternoon.
I put my readers on because I'm a grandmother. Thank you, Public Children's Services Association of Ohio, Executive Director Angela Saucer, Assistant Director Scott Brayton, Director of Strategic Initiatives Mike Kinney, and Communication and Events Manager Ann Potts. Thank you for your care and support over the last several weeks in my preparation for today. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Ohio's hardest working social workers. Happy belated Grandparents' Day to all the grandparents in the room. On the surface, it might appear that we have little in common, and you would be both right and wrong. You would be right because many of you have degrees in social work and are licensed by the state of Ohio. And you've seen and experienced things that even the strongest of us cannot imagine. You would be wrong because it was my family with whom Children's Services had its first contact in the year 2020. I called Montgomery County Children's Services myself. What do Children's Services social workers do? If I could poll 1,000 people on the streets of Columbus or Dayton, I would probably get 1,000 answers. Some people might give a vague answer like, Children's Services, social workers provide services to children, duh. Other people might say something like, social workers protect the welfare of children, of course. Still others might say they break up or separate families. None of these answers are wrong, but it's a lot more complicated than that. What I understand about what Children's Services social workers do is try to ensure each child has their basic needs met, that a child has food, a place to live, that they attend school regularly and is safe from harm, that a child is free to enjoy their childhood, free to be a child. This is us, the Child Protection Team. That, dear friends, is you. Thank you. You may ask yourself every day as you get ready for work, putting on your makeup, your suit, your cardigan, why any of this matters. You may wonder if you chose the right career path. You may think your job is one of the hardest on earth. You are right to ask these questions and make these observations, but your advocacy matters. Your advocacy matters because as much as I want to keep removing my granddaughter's hair ties from the bathroom counter, I remember that she is looking for a place to belong. Your advocacy matters because as much as I did not want to be a full-time parenting grandparent, I remember that I had not seen or spoken to my granddaughter in 3 years. Your advocacy matters because as much as I love and miss my eldest son and wonder every day where he is, whether he is safe or alive, I have the one thing that might help him fly straight one day. Your advocacy matters because as much as I did not want strangers prying into my life, asking me questions about my family, I knew it was a necessary part of the process. Your advocacy matters because as much as I loved living alone, an introvert, a writer and self-employed person, I am not alone with my thoughts as much anymore. Your advocacy matters because a Clark County woman was accused and recently convicted of selling images of her teenage daughter. The woman got probation. Your advocacy matters because as much as I had no intention of taking care of anyone else ever, I know my granddaughter is safe and not surviving off ramen noodles. Your advocacy matters because a few months before Mary Ellen Wilson's case started making headlines in the New York Times in 1873, John Fox, a 13-year-old boy, was killed by his father, Peter Fox, for, quote, refusing to go after beer without the money to pay for it, end quote. As inflation rises and paralyzes families, while the cost of housing goes up and the pressure mounts, who will look out for the children? You will, because your advocacy matters. This is us, the Child Protection Team. In a perfect world, there would be no need for children's services. In a perfect world, parents would not struggle to feed, clothe, or nurture their children. In fact, in a perfect world, if a parent was struggling to feed or clothe and nurture their children, the community would, rather than look away, step up and speak up. The community would reach out. The community would rally around the family. The community would be the village. My eldest son and his girlfriend did not believe they were part of any village when, in 2020, 6 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, they had me and my then 18-year-old daughter arrested for domestic violence. There might still be a mugshot of me and her somewhere on the internet. My daughter had just started a new job, and the last thing a young person needs is to start her life with a misdemeanor. We had been holed up since January of that year after my elder son called from California explaining how he, his girlfriend, and 5-year-old daughter needed help, a place to stay. I listened to his voice over the phone. Again, a new phone number. The last time he called to come home was around 2013. There was no baby back then. They called ahead and took a Greyhound bus to Ohio from California. Before then, it was a short visit, maybe in a weekend in 2010, when I realized he was dreaming too much. He never called unless he wanted to come home, and he never came home alone. I couldn't ever get a straight answer out of him, and it always seemed as if he was hiding behind the beer drinking, hiding behind his romantic relationships, hiding behind the lies he told himself and about everyone else, hiding from the fact that perhaps his own father had never been around. I went from having 2 high school seniors, my biological daughter and youngest child, and her friend from middle school who was staying with us because she was having issues with her own family, to adding 2 more adults, my eldest son and his girlfriend, and a 5-year-old, my granddaughter. I asked myself, what happened to our family? When and where did I go wrong? I wasn't thinking about my family as a microcosm of the wider society, one ripple in a sea of humanity. I thought love could fix everything, no matter how broken. My family, like so many others, has been touched by incarceration, alcohol and drug abuse, child neglect, poverty, unemployment, underemployment, health conditions, and the list goes on. Who are we now? We're a team, granddaughter and grandmother, creating art, spending quality time together, sharing space and meals. Since she re-entered my life, we have made plenty of memories, hopefully things she won't soon forget. This is us. But who were we 150 years ago? Americans were people who cherry-picked the causes that deserved our attention. And we were largely silent about child abuse, which until the 1870s was seen as a parent's right to discipline their child. In 1991, Leila B. Costin takes on the myths around the first recorded case of child abuse in Unraveling the Mary Ellen Legend, Origins of the Cruelty Movement, when she writes, quote, "For more than a century, the literature of social welfare has accepted the mythical and simplistic conviction that a solitary instance of child abuse led directly to a child's rescue as a member of the animal kingdom, followed immediately by a spontaneous and worldwide movement to protect children from harsh treatment, cruelty, at the hands of their parents." In short, Costin believed that it wasn't one person who took one action that was the catalyst to the children's welfare movement and subsequent laws. It was more likely a series of events that led to protection for children. There's no doubt, however, that imperfect people create imperfect systems. The goal, though, is to keep moving toward a system that doesn't do more harm than good, a system that will dig deeper than myths and legends, a system that will treat all children and their parents fairly and with respect, a system designed ultimately with prevention in mind. Kristen Martin writes, quote, "America urgently needs to reimagine its child welfare system." Martin is a journalist and a self-described orphan. Her book, "The Sun Won't Come Out Tomorrow," will be out early next year. You all know better than anyone whether the system is broken. Most of us are on the outside looking in, but here we stand. This is us. When you find yourself between parent and child, remember why you signed up for this, to keep children safe. When you can't sleep at night because you're wondering whether a child is clothed or housed or fed, remember why you decided to go down this career path. Yes, it is your job, but you also love children. Only you know whether the system can work better, whether the system can pivot, at least in part, to prevention. Proactive versus reactive. What can we do to make a difference in a system so vast? Here's what I can do. I can tell you that your advocacy matters. And you can rest assured that my granddaughter and some children like her are safe and clothed and housed and educated and fed. My granddaughter is working through all the emotions that come from not being with her parents, even though she's safe. My granddaughter is questioning how we all got here, even though she is clothed. My granddaughter is trying to understand why this happened to her family, our family, even though she is housed. She is wrestling with what others think about her living with her grandmother, even though she is being educated. And she wonders where her parents are and what they might be eating, even though her belly is full. This is us. After all, quote, children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. John F. Kennedy, 1963. Basically, children are the future. Kristen Martin had taken the abolitionist stance against the child welfare system. She makes it clear when she writes, quote, when you consider that the problem that the vast majority of families in the system have faced from the 1800s to now has been poverty, not being orphaned or being physically or sexually abused, and that the big reform of the system from institutions to foster care has not fixed that problem and has in the process compounded trauma and made kids less safe, it's easier to get to the abolitionist position. Whether Martin's claims are plausible cannot be determined today. I have slipped back in time to raise a 10-year-old pubescent girl, a mother who was done raising her own children when my youngest graduated high school 4 years ago. I also want children safe, clothed, housed, educated, and fed. What can I do? What can we do? This is us. When my granddaughter arrived, I had to ask myself 2 questions. How will she fit into my life, and how might I fit into hers? The 6 months before my granddaughter arrived, I prepared as best I could. We lived in my tiny 1-bedroom apartment for 2 months until my lease was up, and then we moved. I could not have done it on my own. Miss Lindsay at Ohio Can helped me access financial resources. When I was lost and confused on what my next move should be, Miss Shannon at Montgomery County Children's Services was a call or text away. When I needed a friend to listen and reassure me that I was doing the right thing, I called Terry, Whitney, or Rahima. When I needed love and support, I called my younger son, Malcolm, and my only daughter, Nina. They are my village. They want children to be safe too. Recently, I picked up my granddaughter from school and she told me she would clean her room that day. By bedtime, she was not done cleaning it. She checked in to let me know she would finish the next day. She had not finished because her room was particularly messy, but because she is particular about how she wants to live in it. She fought with the clean, fitted bed sheet on the next afternoon. She asked for help, pouted, and cried because I refused to help her. How else will she learn? I asked myself. It's wrinkly, she said, staring at the pastel pink sheets on her twin-size bed. She needs her own space with her own things. She needs her own space for time alone, to reflect, to ask questions, to sit with the grief. A place also for her desk and clothes and toys. We're exactly where we're supposed to be, she and I, our village. I stood in her room that day and told her to pull the fitted sheet all the way down over the corners of the mattress. Many of the wrinkles went away. She looked at the bed she'd made, the sheet she'd recently fought with and cried over, and she smiled, proud that she'd won. Your advocacy matters because none of us would be here without people like Etta Wheeler, where her passion for helping others and her compassion for Mary Ellen Wilson helped us get here. It is said that Etta Wheeler may have been well connected, married to a newspaperman, and if this is true, maybe Etta Wheeler understood the power of media, and maybe this was one more thing that got the child welfare ball rolling. Your passion for your work and compassion toward your clients will make a difference. There is nothing more noble than giving a voice to the voiceless. Your passion and compassion should always work hand in hand. During this Kinship Appreciation Month, while you remind guardians and family members how much they matter, remind yourself that you also matter and that you also need a soft place to land. And remember to always show yourself some grace. Thank you.